Hey, what's up, YouTube? Goratha here. So today I'm gonna talk about my league starter, or my plans for league starter this league. First of all, let me say this may be the most bait-ish type character I've decided to league start in a while. That being said, I think it has a lot of potential. The character I'm playing is Poison Spark. Poison Spark is generally a build that you play later in the league when you have more gear. But I think Assassin has just enough to maybe make it work as like a day one league starter. The main reason for that is we get access to all damage poisons. So we no longer need Original Sin. We don't need like Vine Spike Cordial with the Eater Boots. We don't need any crazy unique items to get set up. And we also have access to really easy cast speed / action speed through the reverse chill with Shattered Blood. If you know what I'm talking about, Ice Fang Orbit plus Winter Weave and Golden Roll. Assassin has a new node called Shattered Blood, makes you unaffected by damaging ailments. So you reflect poison to yourself, and then when you're poisoned, you get chilled. And yeah, it's a pretty decent amount of action speed, like 20 to 30% action speed, depending on how much you invest on the tree to increase effective chill. And on top of that, we get to run Lethe Shade. Now, Lethe Shade generally has a pretty big downside. All your ailments are 100% duration on you. This includes bleeding and poison and ignite. These are pretty annoying most of the time. Whenever you in the past, whenever I played a show at least, I've always had issues with like massive bleeds and ignites. With this though, as Assassin, you're essentially getting 100% chill effect duration on yourself, which makes your reverse chill last longer. Your poisons are lasting longer, so you get better uptime on things like Apex Slumber, and obviously Golden Rule gives you an insane amount of chaos res, 1% per poison. This whole setup seems really good early on, and I think it's a really nice day one starter build, or at least for Trade League. All four of these items I mentioned are extremely common and very easy to get, normally at least. So nothing too crazy going on there. The biggest issue I find with Spark, probably for a League starter, is going to be projectile speed. The solution I have for that is getting 50% projectile speed and using a dagger from the dagger mastery. Endgame, you probably want to swap to Wither or Widowhail plus Quiver or like a projectile speed wand. I have a scepter setup that looks pretty good without smite. I think this is like a pretty decent setup. But yeah, you're essentially trying to get like as much projectile speed as possible endgame. Widowhail is the best way to do that. I don't really want to go Widowhail though. I'm gonna attempt to play this in hardcore. So I really want to use a shield. There's a lot of shield options. A lot of ideas in game for scaling defenses. This build is a little squishy. I think that's the main reason why I think it's a little on the bait side. Between the squishiness and the projectile speed, might be on the baitier side. I do think it has solid potential though. One thing I will mention is Elemental Overload in the past has been really good with balls like this. Unfortunately though, with Assassin, we're gonna get a lot of crit chance. And the way EO works nowadays is if you crit, even if you have 100% poison chance, you will not get poison. So I'll click EO here and show you guys. I actually lose damage by clicking EO currently. And this is with just whatever crit I have just generically on the tree and through power charges. So yeah, not the greatest. I had a pretty interesting idea for endgame scaling as well. Ward stacking with Boon of the River sounds pretty interesting to me, at least defensively. You get a 5% chance to restore your ward on hit, and then you'd run a Conquest Lamellar and get massive ward just from those two things. You can also run Faithguard, like 5k ward. This setup looks pretty interesting. I'm a little concerned that it might be a little too hard to get into stand, at least in hardcore trade. And softcore, you'll be fine. And yeah. Another issue I found with the build is mana cost. This one actually annoyed me quite a bit. I feel like self-cast casters are in such a bad state from mana. It just feels so bad to have to solve your mana in such absurd ways. This character has to solve mana through EB. I initially wanted to go Ghost Dance Hybrid, like I do on most characters on the side of the tree. But unfortunately, I'll show you guys real quick of the life cost. ES cost is we can see it's 500 ES per second, right? Yeah, 500 mana cost per second, and I have 750 mana. I mean, unless you're playing like an Archmage build, I don't know how you're possibly getting that much mana regen, right? I have 13 mana regen. Like, I don't know what GGG's problem with casters are, but it's crazy to me that not only do casters do less damage most of the time, they're also like way more annoying to set up. Mostly because of mana, honestly. Like mana wasn't a problem, casters would be far better. I mean, look how much effective HP I lose by not having, and I only have like 600 ES. Like imagine I could actually run like hybrid gear and not have to solve my mana through like converting all my energy shield into the mana. Sadly, that is the case currently. I don't really see a better way to do it. At least if you're doing reverse chill. Super endgame, if you really want to draw reverse chill, you get some minus mana rings and like inspiration and maybe a mana mastery. Maybe like super endgame, you can maybe make it work that way. There's so many options with this character. I figured I'd go over like the most interesting ones I had. Also, the trader seems really good with this character. You're gonna be changing all of your dex nodes into projectile speed, ideally. So you're either going for trader, which gives like percent dex and like flat dex, pretty good, or you can go for the elegant hubris to ignore stat requirements entirely. What's it called exactly? Yeah, I was looking at it a little bit. Yeah, supreme ostentatious. This could be really interesting. This will allow you to turn every single stat into tattoos. Making sure I have this is there's not like a good spot in the tree for it. You'd have to spend like 6 points to do it. If I didn't have to spend 6 points to get Supreme Ostentatious, this is probably what I would go for. Just because it saves you so much effort and stat requirements. It's like the other big issue I have with like day one on this character. So ideally I was gonna run armor evasion and use EV. But unfortunately, I'm probably gonna still try to do that, but I'm gonna have to use like a lower tier basis probably. Because you want strength. For that, you need a lot of dexterity, and then you need a lot of int to use your weapon. It's just a lot of you need a lot of stats basically. So your like amulet and belt, early belt and stuff like that. You're gonna need like strength and dex and stuff probably. Overall though, I think this is doable day one. I'm gonna attempt it in a hardcore trade. I think it'll be tanky enough for me personally. I'm a little worried about people following the build. That's why I'm putting a big disclaimer that this might be a little bit bait. I'll make it work for sure. It's just, you know, this is my league start plans. I don't want to bait anybody into like a bad league start. This is definitely on a little bit the more sketchy side, I would say, compared to my normal builds. That being said, it looks really good to me. You're gonna have a lot of clear. You have poison, all damage poisons from the start. Spark scales really well in game with projectile speed and duration. You have so many interesting options. And yeah, I think the reverse chill tech is super underrated for a lot of people. They don't really understand how good this is gonna be, I think. Having Lethe Shade makes you a lot tanky against dots. This PB has action speed reduced chill, so all your damage is chilling. You're like really good against dots. Eventually, like Vitality Watcher's Eye, get super tanky with that. Some interesting ward stuff endgame. Yeah, so many good options. I do have Soul Ascension in this POB. This is a pretty hard to get like Uber drop. This adds a lot of DPS though, so I figured I would put this in the POB at some point. But for mapping and early on, you'd run SNS for the explosions, I believe, would be the best option. And then yeah, I have some different cluster setups and stuff like that. And I had like a different tree entirely with EB Mom. I not sure how this tree would look. This is gonna be like a Widowhail tree, I think. If you wanted to go Widowhail, this would be a pretty good tree. This is more damage. Um, yeah. And also I was gonna use the Herald from Lycia, like my fourth point. The Herald of Agony gets a lot of poison chance with Herald stacking. I mean, even just a little bit, you get like 50% chance of poison from Herald of Agony. Seems pretty solid to me. The new Breach Ascendancies look pretty interesting too. We've got a couple leaks going on with the Breach stuff. Seems like those might be pretty good options as well. So many different things to try out. I heard Ziggity mention there might be a graph that removes ailments on you and then gives you more damage. So that could be really interesting with this character, especially when you're reflecting Golden Rule. You don't even really need reverse chill with that, maybe. We'll have to see, though. That sounds interesting to me. So many cool things to test out. And I really wanted to try the new Assassin. I think it's a bit squishy. The new Assassin's biggest issue is it doesn't have any good defensive nodes. Let's be honest, Elusive is a big meme. And Perfect Agony, unfortunately, no idea why it's in the game currently. The current state of Perfect Agony is so bad. Even as Assassin, it's so hard to make this work. It's such a like noob trap. I don't know why it's in the game. This is like such a weird keystone to me. And it effectively bricks EO. Whenever they added Perfect Agony, they also bricked EO for poison with the crit stuff. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing with Perfect Agony. Hopefully they rework this keystone at some point. Yeah, anyways, that's my league start plan. Early on, I am going to be leveling as Poison Concoction until Maps, I think, is the play. Yeah, I mean, I did like a Act 1 to 5 run with Spark. It was playable. Don't get me wrong, it was playable. It's just really early on, your projectile speed and duration is so low that Spark is just not very good until later. I would recommend the earliest would be when you get to Maps and whenever you get Reverse Chill, essentially, is when I would swap personally. Whenever you get that. Because otherwise, your casting is going to suck. You're not going to be able to use Spell Echo. You have to use like faster casting. It'll be a bit painful. Luckily, Poison Concoction is one of the best campaign skills. It did get nerfed a little bit. Also have a Poison Concoction set up here, by the way, because they're looking for a decent Poison Concoction tree. This is like pretty decent setup early on. Cover Lash into like level 12. All this like typical stuff. Make a patch. I made a couple like important notes here for leveling with Concoction. Pretty straightforward though. Even though this isn't the focus of the video, I did also PUB a Cremation Poison Assassin as well. This build actually has really good damage, on PUB at least, and this was utilizing Unleash with the new Unleash Bloodline node. This build looks really strong, and it also doesn't need EB, so it's a very nice contrast to the other character. You don't need EB because you're not really casting as much. The main reason why I decided to go with Spark over Cremation, though, was because I personally didn't really like how Cremation played when I was testing it. Cremation of Volcano doesn't have an initial hit, so you place it down. It actually works really well with Unleash. Talk about that in a second. But you place it down, and it takes a second for it to actually shoot out projectiles, and the initial placement doesn't do any damage. Now, the base Cremation actually has a Corpse Explosion component to it, which does some initial damage, which makes it feel way better for clearing. Fortunately, Volcano doesn't have this, so you have a type of damage that's delayed, but then you're also poisoned, so you have kind of a double delay going on. It does a lot of damage, but the ramp is pretty annoying, and the clear is a little annoying. So overall, like, this does look really good on PUB, and I think it's like a pretty strong character, honestly. It's just something I didn't really want to personally play. The cool thing about this, though, is, like I said, we have Unleash, and we make the Cremation of Volcano last for around like 4.5 seconds. And what this does is Unleash combined with the new Bloodlines node gives us 6 seals, and about every like 4.5 seconds with like level 20 Unleash, we'll get all our seals back. So essentially the playstyle is just throw down Cremations and get 6 Volcanoes and then kind of run around. There's not much to do when you're running around though, so in my head I was thinking that maybe the best setup for this type of character would actually be to run double 5 link with like something like Firestorm or Pelting or something, and just drop one of the links here, and then end up running like Cremation and like Firestorm, like kind of rotating them. This would be really interesting and something that I might look into more later in the league, but not really gonna do this on league start. Just thought I'd mention this and throw this POB into the video because I did look at this a little bit, and I ultimately decided against it. But it's kind of an interesting idea, anyways. If you guys want to follow along with the build, I will be obviously updating it constantly. This build is going to be really interesting, I think. Definitely on the baitier side, though. Just want to mention that. This big disclaimer, this might brick your league start if you don't know what you're doing. But I will be updating and keeping you guys updated constantly, so if you want to risk it, you want to have a more off-meta league start build, this is probably going to be that for sure. I think the gear will probably be on the cheaper side, at the very least. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'm looking forward to starting this on League launch. Yeah, hope you guys have a good League launch. See you guys later. Bye.